Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Jinjin's Cosmic. If you didn't happen to be here, perhaps it's time to meet your soul. Perhaps you're hearing these words just after a turning point in your life. A change, a breakup, a job that no longer fits. Or maybe it's just a quiet, haunting sense that something inside me has shifted. At Jinjin's Cosmic, we believe that every shift speaks its own language, sometimes in the form of an astrology chart, a life path number, a random tarot card, or simply a breath you didn't even realize you were holding. If you're an Aquarius and you carry a rare life path number, then the universe within you isn't like anyone else's. You were born to see the world from a different lens. Deep, ever curious, and always seeking to awaken something in others. As a therapist and astrologer, I don't claim to offer the right answers, but I do invite you to go inward to listen to your own story, not with logic, but with the quiet, sacred presence of your soul, like a moving meditation, to witness without rushing to understand, to know without needing control, to love without needing to change. Part 1. The revolutionary who learns by living. If you're an Aquarius with life path number 5, you didn't come to Earth to follow the script. You came to break the mold, to try, to fail, to try again, but this time as a more awakened version of yourself. I once told a client at Jinjin's Cosmic, you don't need to be stable. You just need to be honest about where your soul is currently learning its next big lesson. And you know what? Not everyone can turn experience into wisdom and then turn that wisdom into a lantern for others. But Aquarius Sync, you can. A real life story. Turning chaos into clarity. I still remember Kan Ling, now COO of an international e-learning platform. She's an Aquarius with a 5 life path. And when she came to me, she wasn't asking, what career should I choose? She asked, how do I keep from losing myself when I change careers, countries, and even my definition of happiness every year? Lynn once said, I can love deeply, but if I stop growing in a relationship, I suffocate. And surely, that may sound extreme, but to a life path 5, it makes perfect sense. You don't stay out of obligation. You stay when your heart is still nourished by growth, experience, and expansion. In work, the rhythm maker of change, Aquarius 5 cannot stay in conservative, rigid environments. You weren't born to hold a seat. You were born to open doors, sometimes even ones that no one else knew existed. Where you thrive, creative education startups, digital media, content healing, transformational travel and experiential workshops. Disruptive tech, where never been done before, is your actual job description. One client at Jinjin's Cosmic, Daniel, an Aquarius 5 with a soul number 1, lived in Switzerland. He was a tech product director until he quit and started teaching breathwork yoga in Bali. Guess what? Not failure flourishing, because life finally opened up the moment he stopped forcing stability just to keep others comfortable. In love, freedom is the love. Life path, 5-inch love, doesn't flutter like a butterfly. It whispers, I stay because I choose to, not because I'm afraid to leave. This makes you magnetic, but hard to hold. Many are drawn to you, yet few can understand you. You don't need control. You need someone who gets that even when you're off to a 2-week pottery retreat in Nepal. You're still in love. You long for someone who says, I love you, not because you're perfect, but because you keep learning who you truly are. I once read tarot for a woman, Aquarius, life path 5, soul, number 3, in a long-distance relationship with an indie musician in New York. Her question was, how do I stay connected without making him feel I'm not committed? I told her, the fact that you want to protect both your freedoms is already a sign of a mature love. Aquarius 5, you don't need a smooth road. You only need a road that's true to you, even if it wins, even if it stops and starts again, even if it makes you begin over 3 times. Because as we say here, at Jinjin's Cosmic, others travel to reach a destination, but you travel to reach freedom, and that's a gift this world is still learning to reclaim. I hope you find places you never even dreamed of, and still carry a soft, honest heart that longs to grow, wishing you the kind of freedom that doesn't need permission to finally live as yourself. Part 2. When Aquarius Life Path 5 Lives in Reverse. When freedom becomes a cover for running away. At Jinjin's Cosmic, I've met many Aquarius Life Path 5 Second with a familiar, exhausted look in their eyes, and a sentence I've heard so often, it's practically a mantra. I can't stand being confined. Oh, I'm afraid of being tied down. It sounds strong, but more often than not, it's a clever way of avoiding something deeper. When freedom becomes a trap, when out of alignment, Aquarius 5 Second don't chase freedom, they run from commitment, even the kind their soul secretly longs for. They hop from job to job, not because the environment is toxic, but because they fear being truly seen. They drop out of courses, not because of boredom, but because the system starts to mirror back their inner chaos. In love, they pull away suddenly, just when someone begins to genuinely reach in. You may say you're diverse, spontaneous, ever learning, but if you feel empty, repetitive, or emotionally shallow inside, maybe you're not exploring. You're hiding behind the idea of freedom. Eugid, a true story. The illusion of being free. One of my clients, Tomas, an Aquarius 5 with soul number 1, lives in Argentina. He works in community development and has traveled to 14 countries for non-profit projects. On Instagram, he looked like the perfect free spirit. But during his numerology session at Jinjin's Cosmic, Tomas sat in silence and whispered, I can connect with hundreds of people, but I can't pick up the phone to call my mom. I write content about healing, but I'm afraid to let anyone see me cry. That's the reverse of Aquarius 5. So afraid of being held down, they never allow themselves to be truly held. So afraid of losing freedom, they lose real connection. In work, always moving, never grounded. When living in reverse, Aquarius 5 Second tend to jump from one project to another, not out of passion, but out of fear of commitment. Burn out constantly, no rest, no structure, no long-term plan. Miss big breakthroughs simply because the idea of signing a contract feels suffocating. I once worked with a creator named Diem, an Aquarius 5 with soul number 3. She said, I feel like if I stay too long in one team, I'll be swallowed whole. And so, she left right before a massive collaboration was approved. Not because the team was toxic, but because she didn't trust herself to be worthy of being kept. In love, hot and cold, then gone. When Aquarius 5 Second live in reverse in relationships, you might see these patterns. Avoiding commitment conversations, i.e. 2. Sending romantic signals, but pulling away when things get serious. Loving but in a close one day, distant the next rhythm that confuses the other person. A client named James from the UK once said he had ended 4 beautiful relationships because I didn't know how to say stay, even though I always wanted them to. He added, I thought I loved freedom, but maybe I was just scared of being hurt again. Aquarius 5 Second don't need to be tied down to feel love, but that doesn't mean avoiding all ties either. You don't have to leave to protect your freedom. You just have to learn how to stay free within connection. At Jinjin's Cosmic, I often tell Life Path 5 Second, the right commitment won't trap you. It becomes the anchor that keeps you from drifting in a sea of endless experience. Oh, I hope you stay awake enough to choose what's truly worth showing up for, and love yourself enough to stop running from the things you secretly want most. Part 3. When Aquarius Life Path 5 elevates, the subtle rebellion called control. When an Aquarius with Life Path 5 evolves, they're no longer just the freedom seeker chasing experiences. They become the one orchestrating experiences for others in a way that's incredibly subtle. At Jinjin's Cosmic, I once met Marianne, a French digital nomad, startup advisor, and travel influencer. She radiated magnetic energy. But in a quiet moment, she sighed and said, "I told my partner, you can do anything you want, as long as it's the way I would have done it." Then she laughed bitterly. "I'm using freedom to control someone else's freedom." Control doesn't always scream, sometimes it sounds like wisdom. When Aquarius 5 Second elevate, their control doesn't show up as force. It arrives cloaked in logic, and it's charmingly persuasive. They won't demand. They'll reason. "You should probably do it this way, because otherwise, XYZ will likely happen." They don't say, "I disagree." They say, "Up to you. But if it were me, I'd probably choose differently." And the irony, they truly believe they're helping. They think they're being loving, supportive, or just insightful. But this is one of the deepest illusions that Aquarius 5 Second face, especially those who are smart, self-aware, and have influence. In work, the charismatic micromanager, I worked with David, an Aquarius 5 with soul number 3. He was the strategy director at a global media firm. He said, "I give my team creative freedom, but in the end, every final decision is still mine. I tell them failure is okay, but when they actually fail, I step in and fix it efficiently." David was an inspiring leader, but without realizing it, his competence was strangling the growth of those around him. In love, invisible rules, heavy expectations. An Aquarius 5 who's in elevated control mode might look like this in relationships. They don't interrogate, but they remember every detail. They're not jealous, but somehow you still feel like you're constantly explaining yourself. They don't say you're wrong, but their presence makes you feel like you're never quite enough. One client, Toon, a Vietnamese Australian man, described his ex-girlfriend, an Aquarius 5. "She could break down why I should pursue a certain career, eat a specific diet, and live in a way that would help me grow. Every suggestion made perfect sense until I realized I had no space left to just be me." And so, true freedom isn't about designing someone else's path. It's about allowing them to walk paths you wouldn't choose, and trusting that their lesson is not yours to manage. At Jinjin's Cosmic, I often remind Aquarius 5 Second, if you truly love someone, you won't show them how to live correctly. You'll stay present as they learn how to stumble, to hurt, and to find their way back to themselves. May you be wise enough not to need to be right, loving enough not to need to teach, and free enough to let go of what no longer nourishes true growth in you or in those you love. Part 4. The Alchemy. When Aquarius 5 becomes the wind that breathes life. When an Aquarius with Life Path 5 transforms, they no longer chase freedom by going far or doing whatever they want. They begin to understand true freedom isn't about escaping into experience. It's about choosing how to respond to it. And they realize something even deeper. Others deserve that same freedom, even if they choose pain, mistakes, or a slower path. At this stage, I call them wind touchers. those who enter a room and leave no scratch. Yet somehow, just by being present, they inspire others to begin their own journey. At Jinjin's Cosmic, I once supported a client named Rafa, born in Argentina now, a mentor for conscious travel. He's an Aquarius 5 with a soul number 1. Rafa once told me, "I used to think I had to reach the Amazon, Tibet, or Iceland to feel alive. But now, when I make tea for my partner at sunrise, I know I am free." That single sentence made many of my students cry, because at some point, we all believed that transformation had to be loud. But for an awakened Aquarius 5, real transformation arrives quietly, when the wind inside them stops wandering and begins to soothe the people they love. In work, from performer to presence, transformed Aquarius 5 become masters of shared experience. They mentor, guide, teach, or speak, but no longer lecture. They don't tell others what to do. They simply share their truth so others can find their own. One student of mine, Chloe, works in space and lifestyle design. She told me, "I don't just do interiors anymore. I help people return to the feeling they want when they wake up each morning." Freedom isn't about a big house. It's about living in a space that feels the lightest to your soul. In love, from movement to stillness. Transformed Aquarius 5 no longer love in order to change. They love in order to be there. They learn to not pull someone into their flow, but become a place where that person can pause and breathe. Not say, "We need to be the same to be happy," but instead, be you as long as you're real. As someone who has met Aquarius 5 in all 3 stages, the wanderers, the rebels, the wisdom bearers, I want to offer you this. May you be brave enough to stop running. May you be quiet enough to hear the wind within your own breath. And may you remember, you don't have to drift to be alive. You only need to return to the gentlest part of your wind and let it breathe life into others, like an invisible gift. The gift of coming home to yourself. If you're an Aquarius with a special life path number, maybe you've quietly asked yourself, "Who am I when I'm not trying to be extraordinary? Would I still be loved if I wasn't smart, joyful, or wise?" At Jinjin's Cosmic, we always remind you, you don't need to be better to be allowed to stay. You don't need to be at peace to deserve love. And you don't need to be like anyone else. You only need to be honest with yourself. That's enough to begin your transformation. If you're learning how to return inward, if you're still searching for a gaze that doesn't judge, if your soul needs a soft breeze to breathe again, leave a comment and tell me, where are you on this journey? Tap the heart if something here touched you, and follow Jinjin's Cosmic, so every video can be a gentle reminder. The universe is still speaking to you, just in a softer language than you expected. My final blessing for you, may you always be light enough to hear your own heart, real enough to be loved the way you deserve, and awake enough to remember the light you seek was never outside of you. It was always waiting, quietly, within.